Way before we had fancy MRI scans, Arthur Schopenhauer recognized the mirage of free will. Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills, said Arthur. You can choose between chocolate and vanilla, but you can't choose what makes you prefer chocolate in the first place. Science, the priest in the temple of materialism, confirms a similar narrative. Neuroscientists claim that they can clearly see on brain scans that decisions emerge milliseconds before we are aware of them. While some philosophers accept the chains of destiny, most spiritual traditions like Kabbalah and Hermeticism suggest that consciousness is the wild card, a force that bends causality from the inside. If you are fully present, you become an active node in reality's feedback loop, rearranging timelines, dissolving karma, and rewriting probabilities from within. Free will and fate have never been enemies. To say that fate negates free will is to misunderstand what fate actually is. The ancient teachings, in fact, reconcile karma, fate, and free will. Your past influences you, but it does not dictate you. While fate is not a puppet master dictating every action, it is the structure within which free will operates. Fate and free will are not on the same spectrum. They are orthogonal, two independent dimensions like the X and Y axes of reality. Most people live in one plane. Either they are fatalists trapped in the vertical, feeling like life is happening to them, or they are naive believers in infinite willpower, imagining they can escape all constraints by mere desire. But the power that builds civilizations and bends reality comes from standing at the intersection of these two forces, to know exactly what is determined and to know exactly where movement is possible. The paradox of free will is that it only emerges within constraints. You cannot have free will without a form of fate to push against. A being with infinite choice is not free. It is paralyzed. The freedom of a chess player is meaningful precisely because of the rules of the game. The constraints make the play possible. Your biology and your past are not chains. They are tools. A fool rages against fate like a man screaming at gravity. A wise man understands his fate and learns how to turn it into leverage. In Norse mythology, Ragnarok is foretold. Odin knows he will die. Thor knows he will slay the serpent Jörmungandr, but take only 9 steps before collapsing. Everybody knows Fenrir will swallow the sun. The end is written, and yet the gods do not surrender. They fight. This is where Norse mythology deviates from passive fatalism. If everything is destined, why resist? Why go to battle when you know you will lose? The answer is profound, because action itself has meaning, independent of the outcome. The gods do not fight to win. They fight because they are gods, and gods fight. Their essence is action, not victory. This is the essence of a heroic philosophy, one that understands that free will is not about escaping fate, but about how you meet it. You may not control the grand arc of time, but you choose your stance within it. The gods of Asgard know they will fall, but they go to war as if they could win. Even Odin, the All-Father, the wise king of the gods, is bound by fate, but he does not sit and wait for it. He sacrifices his eye for wisdom, hangs himself from Yggdrasil for 9 days to gain the runes, endlessly prepares for the inevitable. If fate is coming, then he will meet it as the most prepared version of himself possible. Fate is not a reason for inaction. It is the reason for action. The more inevitable something is, the more we must prepare. The gods know they will lose, and yet they sharpen their weapons, rally their armies, and stand ready. because how you meet your fate is the only true measure of who you are. Many spiritual masters and monks throughout history have spoken of knowing the exact moment of their death. If death were purely determined, would this mean they had no free will? Not necessarily. They do not resist or deny their death, but they also do not walk toward it passively. They move in harmony with it. They're not bound by fate because they fully embrace it. A master who knows he will die tomorrow still eats his meal today, laughs, and speaks as if nothing is different. The unawakened panic at this thought. Believing free will means the ability to resist death. But the awakened see beyond resistance. They understand that the only true choice is how fully present they are within the inevitability of events. In a normal dream, you think everything is happening to you, but in a lucid dream, the moment you realize you're dreaming, you can fly and summon worlds. Free will works the same way. Most people are sleepwalking, affected by the weather, the bacteria in their gut, the ancestral conditioning in their genes. But when you become lucid in your own existence, you start making choices that break the script. The deeper your awareness, the more plastic reality becomes, a cosmic sandbox instead of a rigid prison. A rogue neuron misfires, a butterfly flaps its wings in Madagascar. You choose the bagel instead of the croissant. Let's assume there are two paths that lead to your home. One goes straight and then turns. The second turns and then goes straight. Most of the time, you choose the first one. Now a day comes when you have a desire to make a different choice, just because you can. That's an attempt at free will in action, a microscopic riot against predictability. So free will sometimes doesn't look like some grand philosophical idea. It can also be an anarchy slipping through the cracks of causality. Dostoevsky, the high priest of human torment, saw it with an even darker twist. Free will in its purest form is the ability to spit in God's face. His words, not mine. In Notes from Underground, his narrator basically says, "To hell with all this logic. If I have no free will, I will be irrational just to prove I can." The underground man revels in the absurdity of choosing what is bad for him simply because he can. And isn't that the most genuine exercise of free will, the power to ruin oneself without necessity or logic, just to prove existence isn't mechanical, to defy reason, to sabotage one's own happiness? But maybe even that rebellion is predictable. Take a goldfish. The fish swims freely. It goes left. It goes right. It hovers in place. It darts toward the surface. It has no master commanding it. This must be free will. Except the fish cannot leave the bowl. Some proponents of quantum physics and consciousness studies, desperate to rescue free will from the determinist guillotine, point to quantum mechanics. If at the tiniest level particles move unpredictably, maybe we aren't locked in a rigid fate. Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff have explored how quantum processes within the microtubules of the brain might allow consciousness to have a degree of non-deterministic influence. If free will is rooted in quantum randomness at the level of brain activity, that suggests that our decisions are not entirely determined by past events or the laws of physics, but are influenced by random quantum events. So let's say your brain flips a quantum coin and the result determines your actions. That's almost free will, but not really. Would you call a slot machine free because the outcome isn't predetermined? Well, to be honest, slot machines are the most pre-programmed machines out there. But that's not the point. Here, Zen, often translated as the Great Perfection, is the highest and most direct path in Tibetan Buddhism. Zen's take on free will is liberating. In Zen, there is no conflict between free will and fate, because neither truly exists as we typically understand them. Both are products of the mind's grasping at dualities. The mind constructs the idea of a self making decisions, creating the illusion of free will. At the same time, it creates the sense of fate, a predestined path laid out before us. But this is a misunderstanding of reality. The essence of the Zen teaching is that the nature of the mind is open, unobstructed, and spontaneous. It is not tied to the concept of choice, because existence doesn't require choices to unfold. It unfolds effortlessly, without hesitation. When you truly realize this, you see that neither free will nor fate govern you, because both are empty concepts. When you look into the nature of being, you don't find a chooser or a path. Instead, you find a non-dual state, a pure presence that is beyond both will and destiny. There is no you here to make decisions or to be directed by some cosmic hand. There is simply awareness, which is open and clear.